Hello, dear learners. Welcome to another session of learning. So, today our topic would be 7 types of meaning. So, let's begin. It was Geoffrey Leach in his work Semantic, a Study of Meaning in 1974, where he gave the 7 types of meaning. He breaks meaning down into 7 types or ingredients, giving primacy to conceptual meaning. So, in today's session, we'll be seeing the 7 types of meaning, what they are, and explanation for each of these 7 types of meanings. So, let's begin and find out what are the 7 types of meaning. So the 7 types of meaning listed by Leach are: firstly, conceptual or denotative meaning; second, connotative meaning; third, social meaning; fourth, affective or emotive meaning; fifth, reflected meaning; sixth is collocative meaning; and seventh is thematic meaning. So in the following slides, we'll see an explanation for each of these 7 types. So let's start with the first, which is conceptual or denotative meaning. So conceptual meaning is also called as logical or cognitive meaning, and it is usually the dictionary meaning. It is a dictionary definition that it follows in this conceptual meaning. So such a meaning is also stylistically neutral and objective, as it's opposed to other kinds of associative meanings. And this meaning is the core of all among the 7, and the other 6 types are at the peripheral, meaning they are non-essential, and they are stylistically marked and subjective kind of meanings. And Leach gave primacy to conceptual meaning because it has sophisticated organization, and it's based on the principle of contrastiveness and hierarchical structure. And an example of the hierarchical structure example, take the word boy. So boy is a combination of of the meanings that boy is a human and boy is a male adult. So it includes these two meanings. So the word or the term boy includes these two meanings. So it's like a concept. So conceptual meaning is the literal meaning of the word, and it indicates the idea or concept to which it refers. So the concept is a minimal unit of meaning, which is called as sememe. As we define, phoneme as the basis of binary contrast. Similarly, we can define sememe as the minimal unit of meaning. So another example given here is of a woman. So woman is a concept, and woman is a combination of a human, a female, plus an adult. So conceptual meaning is also denotative or literal meaning, and it is an essential for functioning of language. For example, take the word needle. So it may be thin, it may be sharp, or it may even denote an instrument. So these are all the connotations or the concepts behind the term needle. And the aim of conceptual meaning is to provide an appropriate semantic representation to a sentence or statement. So usually sentence is made up of abstract symbols, and when it comes to conceptual meaning, it helps us to distinguish one meaning from the meaning of another sentence. So thus, conceptual meaning is an essential part of language. So this was the explanation of conceptual or denotative meaning. So conceptual meaning is literal meaning. Next is the connotative meaning. So connotative meaning is the communicative value of an expression over and above its purely conceptual content. So it's the communication value and it's not the concept value. So something more than the dictionary meaning. So for example, you take the word woman again. So woman is a combination of human, female, and adult. But there are other psychological connotations also of a woman. That is, she's typically a gregarious woman, and she's also having maternal instincts. So these all, typify the what the woman connotates. And then we also see that the boundary between conceptual and connotative seems to be analogous. And we also find that incidental, comparatively, it's unstable, indeterminate, open-ended, variable according to age, culture, and individuals. So connotative meaning is bound by all this. It's incidental, it's comparatively unstable, and it is open ended also, and it's codified in terms of limited symbols. So we find that connotative meaning is it has limited symbols. So that was about connotative meaning, which is more than the dictionary meaning. Next, moving on to the third type of meaning, which is social meaning. So here, meaning is conveyed by the piece of language about the social context, in which it is used. So social meaning is related to the situation in which an utterance is made. Okay, so based on the situation, based on the linguistic expression used in a social situation, we understand the person, or we get to know who the speaker is. An example over here is of the statement, "I ain't done nothing." So usually these sort of statements is a slang, or it is used by these African Americans. So if somebody uses the word is uses the statement, "I ain't done nothing," then we immediately we understand that it's an African American. And also we see that stylistic variation also represents the social variation. Example, the word steed. So when steed refers to is a reference to a horse in poetry, but in generally it is called as a horse. And then we also see that stylistic variation is also found in some sentences. For example, the same incident can be reported in two different ways from the person involved. Now, take, for example, a chief inspector who's submitting an official report. His language would be more of an official language, which is given in the second statement. After casting the stones at the police, they abandoned with money. But same thing when criminals stated after the event, they chucked the stones at the corpse and then did a bunk with the look. So we see that there's a difference in the vocabulary structure and the choice of words. So based on the social situation, the utterances also change. Thus, through utterances, we come to know about some social facts. We come to know about social situation, class, region, and the speaker-listener relationship. Also, is understood by its style and dialect used in sentences. So this was about social meaning. Now moving on to the next kind of meaning, which is affective or emotive meaning. So here, from the word emotive itself, we can understand something related to emotions. So emotive meaning is emotive association or effect of words evoked in the reader or listener. So how does certain words, what sort of an emotion it evokes in the listener or the reader? So it also conveys about the personal feelings or attitudes towards the listener. For example, home for a soldier, or a sailor, or an expatriate, it's like it brings out varied emotions, makes them emotional. Same way, the word mother for a motherless child, it makes them emotional. So this is the effective meaning. And effective meaning is often, it's conveyed through conceptual or connotative content of words. Another example is, "You are a vicious tyrant and a villainous reprobation, and I hate you." And that was an example of how emotional or emotions are covered in words. And then we also see that I.A. Richards argued that emotive meaning distinguishes literature or poetic language from factual meaning of science. So this was emotive meaning. So now moving on to the next type of meaning, which is reflected meaning. So reflected meaning and collocative meaning involve interconnection. And at the lexical level of language, we see that reflected meaning arises when a word has more than one conceptual meaning, or it has multiple conceptual meaning. So for lexical, when we are choosing a word and it has multiple meanings, then it reflects to reflected meaning. So while responding to one sense of the word, we partly respond to another sense of the word too. For example, in the church context, when we think about the Holy Ghost is kind of comfort, it refers to the Comforter and the Holy Ghost. So this refers to the Trinity, the concept of Trinity in religion. But then unconsciously also, we also, think of the word comfort beyond religious, context also. So this was about reflected meaning. And moving on, another example I want to give, which is of the word gay. So gay in earlier English, it was, during the times of William Wordsworth, gay meant, one thing. Gay meant, it was used commonly, and gay meant happy, to be happy. But in today's world, gay means, it refers to sexuality, and specifically it refers to homosexuality. So we see that in such type cases of, when there are multiple meanings, one meaning of the word, it pushes the others to the background, it becomes the dominant suggestive meaning. So this power play, what happens in this power play, and when there's a dominant meaning which arrives out of this power play, then that process is called as reflected meaning. So the dominant meaning which pushes the other meaning at the background is called the reflected meaning. So hope you followed till here. We've seen a couple of types of meanings we have gone through. So let's move on to the final two. We've seen five so far. So let's see the last two. So the second last is collocative meaning. So collocative meaning is the meaning which a word acquires in the company of certain words. So there is this association with words. For example, when you think of certain words, you associate it with particular things. For example, pretty and handsome. The word pretty usually and handsome both indicate somebody who's good looking, and good looking, and these terms also are gender specific. So pretty is usually, it is used with reference to women, and handsome is used in the context of men. So collocative meaning, it is the meaning which acquires in the company of certain words. So moving on to the last one, which is thematic meaning. So thematic meaning, it refers to what is communicated by the speaker or the learner, the speaker or the writer, and when he organizes the message, what is the message behind what they are trying to convey. So thematic meaning, it helps us to understand the message. Example, Mrs. Smith donated the first prize, and in the second sentence, the first prize was donated by Mrs. Smith. So in the first sentence, we get to understand who donated the prize, and in the second sentence, we understand that what did Mr. Smith give is importance. Okay, what did Mrs. Smith gave is important. Thus, the change of focus and the change of meaning. So, change of focus, when the direct to indirect, when there's a shift, the meaning also changes. So, I hope you understood thematic meaning. So, let's summarize everything that we saw today. So, conceptual meaning, it is logical, connotative, or cognitive content. Connotative meaning, it is what is communicated by virtue of what the language refers. And social meaning is what is communicated in the social circumstances of language. Next is affective meaning, is related to feelings and attitudes of the speaker. Next, reflected meaning is through associations with other sense of the same word. And collocative meaning is communicated through association with words which co-occur with another word. And finally, thematic meaning is by the way in which the message is organized in terms of order and emphasis. So this was the 7 types of meaning given by Jeffrey Leach. I hope you all followed and you were able to understand today's lesson. So thank you all for joining, and happy learning.